Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Ash Taylor. Ash, welcome.
Hello, Thomas. How are you, mate? Thanks for having me on.
I'm very well, and thanks for being here. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So Ash Taylor, obviously, as people will know, I run a business that kind of supports the micro business owner, those that feel a bit isolated, who work from home. I mean, I know everybody works from home at the moment, but typically from the bedroom business, they tend to be full time. They tend to be have been picking along for several years, but they're in a position where perhaps nobody has taught them how to run a business. They're very good at what they do, but it's a very technician mindset rather than business owner mindset. So we help them make that shift really to make better decisions around their business. Don't do it for them. I'm just the guide. They do the work. And I guess what we try and really do is help them be the hero they want to be in their own business.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it really in a nutshell.
Well, in preparation for our conversation, I've had a look at everything you do, and you're very busy man. I'd really like to know what the vision is for you. So in terms of the end goal for all of your various different activities, I'd really like to know what the outcome is for you and how you see what you're aspiring towards, essentially.
Yeah, it's a great question and one we ask ourselves all the time. It's pretty simple, to be honest. I mean, I would like to help as many business owners as possible, and we have a clear medium-term vision of having 100 members of our community that we can be helping in an effective way. So I suppose the really short answer is that how do we get to 100 people in an effective way so we can look after them properly? And I know that might sound small. There are organizations out there that are helping thousands of people. But my background's in professional sport, and I've run a lot of coaching clubs, if you like. And there's a pinch point at around the 100 mark for me where you lose the intimacy and you lose the ability to know who people's are and truly what their problems are and who their brothers are, who their sisters are, what their kids' names are, that sort of thing. It tends to become much more formal and structured rather than being a real tribe. And I think for me, that's something that really drives me. I love being in a position where we can help facilitate that learning and that growth through people learning off each other rather than us just dictating what should happen. So that for me is the real vision. I mean, it might be that we get to 100 and actually, we're doing this really well and we can do more. But right now, that's the very clear number.
And that's for your Business Clubhouse, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, business coaching in a nutshell. That would be.
In a nutshell, yeah. So I'm in danger of getting excited here, so we'll see where we go. But I'm on a bit of a, I don't want to say mission, but I get frustrated at I meet quite a lot of business coaches who, probably not through no fault of their own, because of the space they're in, who charge a decent, proper fee every month for their services or high value packages. There's a lot of stuff out there about charge a high value fee and you get high value clients, that sort of stuff. But if you're a business owner who, and probably not an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner who's doing, taking home 1,500, a couple of grand a month after all your costs, and not every month, because some months are better than other months, it's difficult to understand how you can be paying out maybe that sort of money for advice and support. So I really wanted to try and create something where people could get the coaching, where they could get the support, where they could get the community, where they could get access to resources at a fee point that was really, really accessible for them. So that's the kind of reason behind setting up the Business Clubhouse. It means we don't have to say no to anybody.
Well, that's great. Great mission. I've noticed in a couple of your profiles, or perhaps on the website, Mastermind facilitator and mentor. Does that coincide with the Business Clubhouse, or is that separate?
Yeah, so that's a high-end product that I have. I've been running masterminds for 9 years now, 9 years, and been part of them for a little bit longer. To answer possibly your next question, my view on masterminds is that they are small groups. So I have a maximum of 8 in my groups. I've learned over the last 9 years that to get the best out of the environment, you need to have enough people where you can create cognitive diversity, but not so many that people get lost, hide. So that's something I've been doing for a long time. That's a much deeper program where we really get into where the business is, what the plan is to change that business over a year. It is a year's commitment rather than a rolling commitment, and we get some really great results from it, because that's really where I'm putting most of my time day to day, is with those members.
And do you have like a remote version of that now, or is it strictly in person,
Yeah.
waiting for things to normalize?
They're all waiting on the edges of their Zoom seats, waiting to get back to normal into a boardroom space. Yeah, it's our typical model used to be sort of meet face to face every other month and then online every month. So I've been using Zoom for 7 or 8 years in that way. But when we meet face to face, there's definitely a kind of different vibe to it. There's no question, when you can actually look at somebody in the eyes without a screen being in the way, the dynamic does change. And you have the beer in the bar afterwards and the chat, and actually we find that more work gets done in the bar and over dinner after the meeting than often during the meeting. Sometimes I think, why are we even bothering with the meeting? We should just go to the bar and chat, because we kind of get more out of it.
More productive, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. People open up and loosen up, and when you can create an environment where people just trust each other and are very honest and open, then things start to happen, and the right conversations start to happen. And that's what I try and facilitate, is just sit in the background and let them get on with it.
Do you notice any, both in the Business Clubhouse and then also the Mastermind sessions, do you notice any common recurring issues that you could share, and how you overcome those?
Yeah. I would say broadly, one of the big things is, what I define it, a lack of self-worth, lack of self-value, that sort of imposter syndrome piece, and it spills out into different things. So a lack of confidence in selling, inadequate pricing structures. So people are really frightened of saying, this is what I'm worth and you should pay it. And there's a barrier around letting go as well, I would say, is the second thing, is that in order to grow, and I'll be totally honest here, some of the people we're working with are deliberately shrinking, but we're growing their bottom line but shrinking their top line, because we're finding ways to actually generate profit without it becoming a cumbersome business, because they want a lifestyle business. That's absolutely fine. I'm all over that. But there are a lot of barriers around, well, if I get somebody else to do that work, they're not going to do it as well as me. There might be mistakes. Yeah, but you're doing everything and you're making loads of mistakes. So, let it go. We sing a lot of Frozen. So yeah, I think they're the two things that probably stand out the most, is that lack of not self-confidence, but it's just not valuing what they do. And that translates and kind of shows itself up in lots of different ways. And trust. I think trust, that's sort of letting go, is a common thing.
So do you teach pricing models, like pricing theory, or do you address the mindset stuff in regards to pricing?
There's a little bit of both, because having run businesses myself and surrounding myself with smart people, you get an idea of how you can leverage pricing in effective ways. But before you can do that, the person you're working with needs to get their head in the right place to be able to accept the changes that they're going to implement. So, perfect example, I spoke to a client last week. Yeah, I forget what day it is at the moment. But yeah, I spoke to a client last week, and she imports dog treats, and they're really high-end luxury dog treats. Now, because of Brexit, the fees she's having to pay, both in carriage, so logistically getting the gear over here, and two, import duty is now 8p per item, whereas before it was 0, and her costs have trebled on the transport. So she's like, my gross margin's gone down. It's not, I don't know what to do. What I'm doing. Well, you need to put your prices up, and you need to pass that on to the customer. That's just one of the impacts that Brexit had on us. You've got a great customer base. They're very loyal. They pay every month. They'll understand. Oh, I'm not sure I would. And actually, when you dig into it, she was reflecting her own scarcity mindset, because she's had some challenges herself. So she's reflecting her own scarcity mindset onto her customers. She's making an assumption that because she's worried about cash, that her customers are worried about cash. But her customers are paying £20, £30 a month for dog treats. These are the kind of guys that will spend 200 quid on a dog bowl, or will pop 50 quid's worth of dog treats if they're in Waitrose into their basket as they go past the aisle. It's the cost of a bottle of wine, every couple of days at home with dinner. It's not an amount of money for them that they worry about. And once she started to realize that and recognize that she was reflecting it, she went away, put the prices up 25%, spoke to her yesterday, and she said, nobody's batted an eyelid. But it's getting to the point where you recognize you are not your customer. And that's the big thing. You are not, this, through marketing, you are not your customer, and you cannot reflect your own perceptions on the world and assume that your customer feels the same. They don't.
I think most people, exactly as you said with the example, most people struggle with that exact problem. But at what point do you think it becomes, if you took that to the extreme, for example, there would be a point at which I suppose the prospect would say, yeah, that's just too rich for me. How do you balance the two?
Yeah, I think there's a point at which where the prospect does say it's too rich for me. You're right. So I think there's a couple of solutions. One is you go after different prospects. And you put your message in front of prospects who are prepared to pay that fee, because there are always people out there. Or you come up with alternative product solutions that people can access at a lower price. So that's exactly what we've done with the Business Clubhouse, for example. We've created a product, we've created a solution that solves a problem that we understand a lot of business owners seem to have, and we're giving it to them at an accessible price. We've practically taken a zero off the price to make it accessible. So there's that solution as well. But I think also there's an element of understanding that when we're talking about pricing and you're getting to that pitch point, sometimes you've got to live on that razor blade of sort of uncertainty for a while, where you're not sure, or take a leap of faith and really go hard with the pricing. So in one of my very first businesses was a tennis coaching business, and we had a real capacity problem. I think at the time we had five clubs I was working with at that time, and we had a real capacity issue. We were having to turn kids away, and it was breaking my heart, because I'm watching all these kids wanting to come along and play tennis, and I was having to turn them away. So somebody said to me, "Why don't you just double your prices?" And I said, "Well, I'll lose half my customers." And he just looked at me. So we did. I mean, it wasn't quite. It was a hike. We went from about £5.80 to just over £11. Just over £11. And that was to keep the term cost under a certain number. I think it was under 110 quid or something for the term. And we lost 30% of our customers. What was really interesting is that the next term, we gained those 30% back, because the people that stayed could afford the price increase, and they referred their friends who could also afford the price increase. What that enabled us to do with that increase, so we refilled capacity, we then had more profit, we were able to shave off some of the profit, and we started a community program for those who couldn't afford the fees. So some of our clubs were in, slightly more deprived areas that, and families and kids were challenged, and tennis was seen as a luxury, but I wanted kids to play. So we were able to offer bursary places, bursary programs, because we'd put our prices up, created profit. Profit gave us the leverage to be able to do some good. So everybody won. So it was a brave thing to do. And I remember pressing the button and thinking, oh my God, but it turned out okay.
Well, I like the you walk in the talk regarding both the Business Clubhouse and the Mastermind stuff. So you're basically doing exactly what you're advocating, which is great. What about because I watched the show reel, the speaker show reel. Have you got any plans in regards to that when, again, things normalize? And also the book, Hitting the Wall. What are your plans for both of those things?
Wow, great question. You have done your research, haven't you? Yeah, the speaker show reel, I need to update that, but I haven't had an opportunity for about 18 months to do so. Yeah, I really enjoy speaking. We were speaking before we started, obviously, about this whole the way that lockdown has affected people. As a kid, I was really, really shy. So then, I never would have thought I would stand at the NEC, for instance, in front of 2,500 people talking to, business owners from a stage with Steve Wozniak, for example. And it's right now, there's a part of me going, can I do that again? Because I had to grow into it from being that shy child. But I think deep down, if you've got a message and you've got stuff to share and it can impact people, and one person takes away that message or part of that message and does something with it and has a positive change, then I kind of take the view that I have to be on that stage because it's kind of a responsibility in many ways. It's uncomfortably with me, but I recognize it's part of what you do when you put yourself forwards in the space that I'm in, I guess. So yes, I would love to get back on stage. I would love to be speaking again. I know when I speak, I can have an impact. There's a lot speaking in schools as well. That's a really cool thing to be able to do, have the time to do that. And it links in with the book because we wrote the book we started it properly, really set an intent last April. We launched it in December. We got to number one in 2 categories on Amazon and top 10 overall in business books, which I was, really, really happy with. Because I didn't have the speaking platform, I just thought, well, maybe this is the time to get the message across through a different medium. And we chose the book. And it's been really well received. And what I'm finding is that when people read the book, they contact us. They get in touch and they leave reviews and they email us and they say, this was really cool. How can I spend time with you? I mean, they're not using those words, but that's kind of the inference, I suppose. So the plan with the book, honestly, is to try and give away about anything between 1,000 and trying to be brave enough to go to 2,000 copies in the next 12 months and just give it away. People are telling me I find this really uncomfortable, Thomas, but people are telling me there's a really strong message in the book that is benefiting people. So if I can get it out in front of more people in the right audience, then I guess that's the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, I have to ask as a follow-up, what's the main message that you'd say is powerful within the book? There's no spoilers, of course.
No spoilers. I think the strap line of, winning the game of business by breaking through your own barriers probably says it all. It's a book that talks about my journey without being autobiographical because nobody really cares about me. And it's just about the lessons that I've learned running businesses, having a business fail, losing my sister in a car accident very unexpectedly. No one has an expected car accident, so, you know what I mean? Nearly losing the relationship with my daughter because I was so busy building the business. And what I've tried to do is just distill some of those experiences into simple lessons that people can take away. Things like how to build confidence in yourself, things like understanding your numbers, because that played a huge part in me losing my business. Is just I hid from the numbers because I think a lot of business owners do. and things like it's okay to ask for help, because a lot of people don't. So I don't know if there's one overriding message other than there's a fabulous quote from, and there's a slight bit of irony in here, but there's a, I'm sure you'll know it, but Rocky Balboa, who is a fictional character, has one of my all-time favorite quotes, which is, if you want to see the most difficult opponent you ever going to have to face, you need to look in the mirror, because most success is about beating yourself. It's about being a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. And I think if I was going to pick out one theme, that's what runs through the book.
Mm. Well, that sort of comes back to your example about pricing, doesn't it? And the quote is at the beginning of the book, so it's poignant. Just coming back quickly to the Business Clubhouse and the Mastermind stuff. I asked you about the common mistakes, but I'd also quite like to know, of the people that you work with that are doing the best, what would you say common traits that they tend to have in common?
Oh, great question. I went for a walk and talk with my membership manager yesterday, and we were talking about this. We were talking about what is it about the people that are really making a difference. And so one of our clients is a photographer who's in the Mastermind, and she's basically had no work for a year. And all she has done every session is said, right, Ash, what can I do? Let's not talk about what I can't do. I can't do weddings. I can't do shoots. I can't go out and see people. I can't go and do expert empires and, photograph in LA and all the rest of it. What can I do? And that question there, I think, is the most common one that I see with the people who are successful. They focus on the things they can do and get on and do them. The people that succeed. I mean, some of my best clients, I barely hear from them. But every month, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. We've taken steps. These are results. What's next? And they're making those changes and they're taking those steps despite the fear, despite the assumption that it might go wrong. They do it anyway, and it's about taking action. It's not taking huge leaps. There are no magic wands in the world, or if there are, I've never found any. But you just tick along at 1% every day, you're going to get somewhere. And as long as you're aligned and you know where it is you're trying to get to, take the steps. Take the step. Take action every day. If you can say, I've done something today that's moved me forwards, then you can rest easy at night and go again the next morning. It's not a definitive answer, but that's probably the best I can give you. People take action despite their fears.
And the flip side of that, of course, being looking for the reasons where it won't work and just being stuck by that.
Oh, completely. We have and sometimes it can be a bit of a compound effect. I'm working with a guy. He's in his third year of Mastermind, third year, and it probably took 18 months for him to get over this sort of I get paid when I do the work type attitude. So, Dad worked in a factory, clocked in, clocked off. His conditioning, if you like, is that I have to work 9 to 5. It doesn't really matter what the work is. As long as I'm putting in my 8 hours a day, I'm being productive, I'm doing something, and trying to help him recognize that he doesn't have to be doing that work. Somebody else can be doing that work. His job is to lead those people and trust them to get on with it. Has been a long, I don't want to use the word battle, but it's been a long process. But he currently is sitting on 4 of his best months ever and had 6 members of staff. Because once he got over the hump, but it took him 18 months to get there. So it wasn't a linear process. It wasn't a straight line. It was battle. Okay, I'll try one person. Oh my God, this works. I've got some time back. Can I find another one? Can I find another one? So yeah, and that's quite interesting. Is that I try, not that you give up on people, but people get there in their own time. And I think I learned that from coaching sport. You can have 5, 6 year olds who look amazing, and the other 5 and 6 year olds around them are no good. But by the time they're all 8 years old, the other 5 and 6 year olds have caught up. Kids develop at a different pace. Actually, humans develop at a different pace. And when you're learning a new skill, or you're trying to reshape your mindset into thinking a different way, people do it at different paces. You have to allow for that.
So when did you go from coaching tennis into your business? When did that happen?
It was a kind of I'd say, did I fall into it? So when I lost my business in 2013, let's remember the date, December the 6th. I'd already started mentoring, and I'd already started. So I was working with a lot of coaches who were setting up their own businesses and helping them. I'd been networking for the first time in my life, because see what happens, who I meet. I met my bookkeeper through networking, for example, back then. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. And when I lost the business, I was a little bit at a loss. I had another business that was ticking me over for a while. And I just found that people were asking me for help. They were just coming to me with questions. So, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I just sort of went, well, I'll happily help you. Would you mind paying? Okay. A bit sort of shyly. And they said, yes. Okay, brilliant. Well, should we have another session next month? And will you pay for that? Yes. Okay. Well, would you like to go on to a retainer? So it sort of organically evolved. And I didn't really think beyond sort of survival for 6 or 7 months. And then I kind of looked at my experience at coaching sport, and I thought, well, what are the lessons that I can take from that in terms of running the businesses and actually delivery that I can bring into the business environment? And one of the things I realized very, very quickly is that the kids that I worked with excelled when they were competitive against their peers, not me. So I would have conversations with parents along the lines of, why aren't you playing with my child? Well, because I'll never play him in a tournament. I'm bigger than him and stronger than him and far better than him. He needs to play against other 8-year-olds because it's 8-year-olds that he's got to beat. So and so we would create squads. So I see my mastermind program as a squad of business owners. They're playing the game of business. They are using different tools. They've got different business models, but there is a very subtle edge of competitiveness between them, but also collaborativeness, because there's no direct competition. So you don't get people turning up and saying, oh, I haven't done the stuff I'm supposed to. I haven't practiced. Because the other 7 guys in the room will go, well, why not? We're a team here.
Mm.
So it was very much an organic, going back to your question, sorry, but it was very much a sort of organic shift. I found myself with clients. I started my first mastermind. I locked people in for 12 months. People liked it. They got results. So do you want to go again? Yeah. We invited a few more people in. And then, I sort of ticked along like that. I brought in people to help me, administrators, bookkeepers. And I found very quickly that, okay, well, that mirrored my coaching background as well, in that I might be great at technically working with 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. That was my real sort of spot. Sort of 3 to 8-year-olds was my little zone of genius on the tennis court. But when we got the better players who were technically far more competent, I would bring in other experts. And I would bring in physios, I'd bring in nutritionists, I'd bring in personal trainers, I'd bring in psychologists, because I don't know that stuff. And it would be stupid of me to try and deliver stuff I'm not qualified in, I'm not experienced in. So you surround yourself with people who are better than you. So while I understand the principles of marketing, I'm not going to deliver it, because people write better copy than me. So get them to do it. So suddenly you find yourself with a team. And I'm at my happiest with a team, because it's just it's just who I am. I like being surrounded by people and who can get together and make things happen. And yeah, and here we are. So I would, I didn't wake up one morning and go, I'm going to do business today. It's sort of, I get to do now what I've been doing since I was 13 years old. Brilliant thing is I don't have to run and do it.
So just for the sake of other people also learning the lesson, because you learn more by losing than you do by winning. What was the thing? What was the main thing that you, with the first business that you were referring to, I think you referred to it as the bottom line numbers, perhaps. What was that thing that you were neglecting or trying to shy away from?
Um, do you know what? I'm not unintelligent, and and most people are not unintelligent, and I love numbers, but I love numbers in the context of understanding them in the way that I want to understand them. So you show me a sales funnel, I'm all over that because that really excites me. You show me a balance sheet, and I'm like, well, I don't really know what that means, and I don't want to look stupid. Nobody at school ever pulled out a balance sheet in maths class and said, this is what a balance sheet looks like. This is what a P&L looks like. This is what a cash flow forecast looks like. This is what a budget looks like. I've never seen one before. And when we are faced with things we don't understand, we hide. That's just people hide. Generally, they hide. And I think we've been conditioned in school as well that, certainly for me, two things happened when I put my hand up at school. The teacher said, "Oh, Ash, not you again. Can't you keep up?" Or my mates beat me up in the playground afterwards for being a swot or a teacher's pet. So you learn really quickly not to put your hand up. So there was this gap in my knowledge. I was afraid to ask questions. And there were things that I didn't know about business, and business numbers being really key. I didn't understand the principle of break even. I didn't really recognize that as a tennis coach on my own, I could have a low winter and make hay in the summer, and it would balance itself out because the only balance sheet I had to worry about was my own. But when you put that into an environment where you've got 12 clubs and there's over 1,000 children playing rather than 100 or so, the compound change there in terms of cash flow was enormous. So we could do 40 grand a day in the summer and 100 quid in November, across 12 venues. And I knew at a level that that was a problem. And my manager would say to me, "We've got no money to buy tennis balls." And I'd be like, my answer to everything was, "Oh, it'll sort itself out. Don't worry about it. It will come good. I'll find a way. I'll fix it. It'll be all right." And I shied away from actually understanding where we were with the numbers. And it was only, and I missed this out in the book, I should have put it in actually, but it was only, remember getting a call from reception in the posh offices we had in Reading, because, a tennis coaching company needs an office for 6 people in the middle of Reading on an 18-month contract. I remember getting a call from reception, and I went downstairs and the VAT man was in reception. Okay, well, you owe us 30 grand. Hmm, okay. So how much can you pay today? In pockets, 50p? It's like- and and I look back on it and I just think, oh my God, this is just so stupid. But I meet people all the time who say, I don't have the money to pay the VAT bill. I know now it's not my money. So I have a separate account to put it into because I'm just holding on. It's the best scheme ever devised, isn't it? We hold on to the money on behalf of the government and then just pass it on when it's appropriate, and they just recirculate it. But it's not my money. So it's things like that. I just didn't understand the principle of taxation. I didn't understand how. I think that's how I would say it in a nutshell. Didn't understand the principle of how money moved through a business on a monthly, quarterly, and annual cycle. So if you take a pound coin and start with that pound coin at point of purchase, and watch a pound coin travel through a business. And this is an exercise we do with our clients. At what point does the pound coin actually disappear? And for many businesses, you run out of pound before the 30-day cycle is over. You have no cash. And I just did not understand any of that. and better now.
Well, thank you for sharing it, because I don't doubt for a second that there are many people, as you probably already know, in that same position.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think people are. We all concentrate and we all focus on the things that we're good at. I had a great conversation. I do some volunteer work at local secondary school, do some speaking, and I'm an enterprise advisor. So basically, my job is to connect the local work community with the students and create speaker opportunities and workplace opportunities and work experience and that sort of stuff. And one of the girls reached out to me, and she was saying that she wants to go to university. She loves the thought of doing nutrition and fitness, but she's not having a great experience with her PE A level. She's doing PA anthropology and psychology. Oh, God, it's brilliant. And I said, well, what are you not enjoying about the PE course? And she said, well, I'm 4'9". I hate basketball, and making me play basketball. And actually, when we dug down, actually, it's because she doesn't like basketball that she's not enjoying it. She likes the other elements of it. So, what about basketball is there that she can learn to like? What elements of basketball can she use as performance goal training opportunities for her taekwondo? Because she's a taekwondo national champion. So, can she use it as an opportunity to challenge her dynamic balance? So go into that 40-minute basketball lesson thinking about, right, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to improve my taekwondo skills by focusing on these techniques. And that just changed everything for her, because she was able to see that actually, right, I've been burying my head in the sand trying to avoid it because I don't like it. But if I can face it and use it as a lever to improve the long-term goal, then my attitude towards it now is very, very different, because I can see a reason for doing it. And it's the same with numbers. If you can recognize that numbers are no more or no less than a tool to help you achieve your long-term vision or your long-term goal, then they become real. I always think of numbers now as keeping score rather than accounts. Business is a game. If you're winning, you're making a profit. If you're losing, you're not making a profit. If you imagine watching a football match with no scoreboard and not knowing what the score was, or watching a golf tournament, or playing golf without keeping score, it defines all sport, doesn't it? Keeping score. Otherwise, it's a club game.
For most people, I think playing golf without the score would probably be a lot less stressful for them. But
there is that. There is that.
But I get the analogy. On a scale of 1 to 10, coming back to numbers, how much would you say that because you've got expertise now in the area, how much would you want to go back into that business knowing what you know now?
Oh, do you know what? I got asked this last week by somebody who said, "Oh, we've ever thought about going back into tennis coaching?" I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say a 2, 3. It would feel. I might change my mind in a year or so, but it would feel like a backward step. And I'm still qualified. I could step back. I'd have to do some CBD and upgrade. I could step back into it. But also, do you know what? I'm 7 or 8 years older. It would hurt. And it's I tried to play. I played a tennis match about 4 years ago. Couldn't move for 3 days. It was just crazy. And look, I could go in and probably run a club and go in on a consultancy basis and all the rest of it. But that part of my life is done. Really, it gave losing the business certainly not killed, but it certainly diluted a lot of the passion I had for the game.
Well, 2 or 3 is probably not going to get you through the tough times, is it?
No, I don't believe so. There's always something else I can do.
So what was the scenario around when someone asked you for help as a business coach, or perhaps just help in general, not phrasing it in that particular way? What was that like? What was that story like? How did you feel?
Valued. So you one of the questions you asked earlier is like, what are the challenges that people face internally? What are the common themes and that sort of self-worth? And I think when you've built something up, and I literally was sort of walking around like the big I am. I built a reasonably, it wasn't, millions, but we built a reasonably successful business in a very short period of time. And I was a somebody in several worlds, in my local entrepreneurial world, and that sort of circuit, if you like, and within the tennis world as well. And when that all comes crashing down, you really start to challenge who you are, whether you're worthy, I suppose, whether you have any value. But when people come to you and start saying, "Can you help us? Got these questions. You've done this. You know the answers." Actually, it starts to build those layers of self value and self respect. And I believe that that's that's what it felt like for me. Is I almost could feel I don't know, my value battery. I can't think of another better phrase, being popped up, being recharged, because people were telling me that I was I was worth being in their lives and around them, and they valued what I had to say and what I had to share. And I think deep down we all need self validation, don't we? Or external validation, as much as it should come from self. We all need external validation.
Well, it's sort of understandable if you go from what you were talking about, how you felt with the Batman, and then going to someone who really wants your advice. Those two are quite a contrast of situations, aren't they?
Yeah, and it wasn't just the Batman. There were a lot of things that happened in that business with people as well, and uh, you know, the, I'm a great believer that the people that surround you with can really influence who you are and where you go and your thinking. And I thought I'd surrounded myself with the right sort of people, so I was quite wary as well. So when people were coming to me and saying, "Can you help with this?" It was just a real, okay. Not all people are like that. People do value me. People do respect me. I think respect is quite a big word as well. I'd lost a lot of self-respect.
Mm.
Felt like people hadn't respected me. So to change that was cool. It was good.
So how long before you decided to go into it as a full-on business, limited company, if you like, and what did it first look like?
So I set up the limited company in 2016. I think it was the back end of 2016. I think um, it it wasn't again. It wasn't a kind of, "Oh, right, I'm going to do this." It just felt the right thing to do. I was chatting to my accountant, and he just said, "Look, you generate some decent revenue. You've got some costs. You're probably at the stage where I would advise you from a tax perspective to register the company as limited and just keep doing what you're doing. It's going to mean, our fees will go up a little bit, but I'll be able to give you some more support and advice." Um, it just technically, it seemed to make sense, mostly from a kind of tax perspective. What was quite interesting is he then said, "And I also think you should register for that." Okay, again, it's a bit scary. Don't want him coming around. um, so there's two kind of, really, it was mostly for technical reasons that we did that. But it has made a big difference because what happened overnight for me is I went from being a business coach, and that's how I would use position myself. My name's Ash Taylor. I'm a business coach. Help specialize in helping people with productivity because that's what I did then. That was the real focus. I thought people wanted to do more. Actually, they want to do less. um, but I kind of overnight, I remember thinking, "Oh, I own a business again." Right. So my name's Ash Taylor, and I own a business that helps people be. There was a flip, right, that I think I'd had when I had my tennis business, but I'd forgotten that. And it's something I talk to. It's one of the very early questions I ask people when I meet them. I always say, "So what do you do?" And nine out of 10 people will answer, "I'm a florist. I'm a marketer. I'm a videographer. I'm a photographer," so on. What changes in terms of their ability to run and leverage the business effectively is when they're confidently able to say, "My name is, John, and I am the owner of videography business." depersonalizes it. Part of that process is making it a limited company, because you're giving birth to a separate legal entity. And you have a responsibility to that entity, but it's not you.
Mm.
It's not you anymore. And it does have a big shift, I think, for many people.
Yeah. Often when I say, people ask me what I do and I say I'm a business owner, they're like, I have a follow-up question. They're like, that doesn't tell me anything.
No, well, I did the census, filled out the census on Sunday. I really struggled with it because I didn't know how to answer the question. There was a couple of questions. So it was, are you self-employed, employed? None of the above. Are you looking for work? Well, I'm employed. That's just how we've structured our accounts for tax purposes. I get my PAYE allowance and then dividends, but I'm not an employee. I'm not a sole trader. So I couldn't answer the question. And my wife and I were like, Jesus, I can't answer the question. How do you answer that question?
I liked the, what's your main activity?
Oh, I put director. That's my job, is to direct the shape of the business.
Well, I sort of interpreted it as like, what do you do on an ongoing basis the most? I was like, I'm going to have to think about this. I'm not really too sure what I do.
It was, I don't know if it was deliberate or if they just haven't got enough boxes. I don't know. It's just, do you know what I mean? That they have to fill, because data is only as good as the input you give it. And having gone through that on the weekend, I'm now questioning the input, and therefore the data that will come out of it.
Mm. Well, you mentioned productivity, so I'd regret it if I didn't ask you about that. What's the I don't know, what's the summary of the best advice that you could give someone on how to be more productive?
Ooh, there's a great question. Okay. Simply, I would say the number one thing is to plan. People don't plan enough. People turn up to the day and allow it to happen to them. And I urge people to plan their year, plan their quarter. I still work in terms, so we have 3 terms a year. Maybe that you asked me that question earlier about, scale of 1 to 10, maybe a bit of me still has a foot, in that part of my life. But so I work in school terms because it suits me and I can do all the stuff. But I plan, and I know, I know for a fact I can open up my diary now and there will be slots available for clients in September next year. I don't know who those clients, which clients will fill them, but the slots are available. So everything revolves around being more organized than everybody else. If I can be more organized and plan ahead of everybody else, then everybody needs to fit in around me. So an example of that is I had a message from somebody yesterday. I saw it today because it was on Messenger, and I have no notifications on my phone, which is another thing.
A productivity tip.
Yeah, just notifications. Turn them off. And so he said, "Oh, have you got 10 minutes today?" And I was like, "No, I don't. My diary's done for the day. I planned it. I refined it last night, but it was planned a week ago. So I have no room. I don't have a spare 10 minutes. You can book a call with me, book a 15-minute call with me. You might get something middle of next week, but because my stuff goes in first, and it all comes back to, you asked the question about vision. It all comes back to goal setting. I know what I want to achieve personally and business wise. So I know what the big rocks are, if you like, that I need to have done. They go into my diary first. Everything else just sort of spills in around it. Holidays first, golf second, along with time with my daughter. She's 18 now, so I think she's less stressed about it. Going to watch PPR. No, but And date night, they go in the diary first, and then it's my mastermind sessions because they're fixed, our calls, the workshops that we're running, so the core business activity in terms of delivery where I need to be there. Everything else just sort of, it's like sand in a jar where you try to fill that jar up with the big stones and the shells. You put all the big rocks in first, and then you allow the sand to fill the spaces around it. I think that's the answer. Is just you have to learn to you have to work out what's important to me, and then you need to you need to prioritize those things in your diary first. And the other productivity tip, in a nutshell, I would say is, if anyone's listening to this and has ever been in a situation where they've needed the emergency services, so whether it's an ambulance or someone's breaking into your house at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you can hear people when they get in through the door. You're not going to send them an email, are you? You're going to pick up the phone and dial 999. You are not going to send an email. And the trouble is that when we receive emails, we perceive them as an urgent form of communication. If it's urgent, they'll pick up the phone. And by checking your emails at the beginning of the day, what you're doing is you're allowing other people to run your day. You're allowing other people to dictate how your day unfolds. So I refuse to look at my emails before 9:30. And then I'll give myself a little half-hour slot to look at my emails, and then I'll look at them again at sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock. Because I know if I look at an email, you never get an email saying, "Oh, I've done this for you." You always get an email saying, "Can you do this for me?" And whoever invented reply all, should be put in a box and someone.
I really like the prioritizing it based on the type of communication. I've not heard that before. So if someone's willing to send an email, then it can't be that high priority, even if it has urgent in capital letters in the subject line.
Pick up the phone. I mean, we have a rule within the business that if we send emails to each other, it's for information or long-term purposes, not to be acted on. We use Slack for day-to-day.
It's a great point. Thank you very much for all the information. I think it's been a great conversation. Can I ask, where is the best place for people to find you?
You said earlier I'm a busy man, so I'm around in lots of places. Usual social media channels I'm easy enough to find, but everything kind of funnels through the Business Clubhouse website, which is thebusinessclubhouse.co.uk. If people want a copy of the book, they can, there's a tab on there. Do that, and I'll happily send people a signed copy of the book if they want it, because I'm happy to give them away in people's hands, and if they take something from it, then that's great. So that may be my gift for people listening, if they're interested.
Okay, well, thank you again. I think it's been great. And Ash Taylor, I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate the opportunity.